Hello and welcome to the Human Echoes podcast.
I'm Tony Southcott.
I'm Farmer Berg. For those of you on the
Rocking
video
the overalls
podcast,
today. I keep telling Al this is how we're gonna lose sponsorships and stuff.
they're going to be so offended by my overalls,
Yeah.
my ill-fitting overalls, and my Napoleon Dynamite reference T-shirt that you can't see.
That or we'll end up getting some really cool Oshkosh Bagosh sponsorship. Be trying to sell us overalls.
There was a ton of Vote for Pedro shirts, but I have the Your Mom Goes to College shirt on, Tony.
Your mom goes to college.
I love that quote. I don't know. It's hilarious.
I don't remember that quote, but I want the shirt.
Well, no, it's when Deb comes to the door and she's selling the little keychain things or whatever. She's like, I'm trying to raise money to go to college, and then Kip hears it from inside the house and turns over. He's like, your mom goes to college. I watched that movie way too many times. I take that back. I watched it not enough times, but I watched it a large number of times. Love that movie, Tony.
Maybe we
haven't
should
talked about it on the podcast yet, have we?
No, we haven't.
We need to talk about that. I keep thinking we haven't talked about Defendor, and then I think maybe we did at the very, very beginning of the podcast.
We did not. I've never seen Defendor.
Oh, really? Well, we
Yes,
should watch Defendor too, Tony.
All right.
Defendor is a good movie.
Sharknado.
Do what?
Are we going to do that instead of Sharknado?
No, next week is we have to finish out the month, Tony. Come on, just grit your teeth and get through it. One more B movie for the month, and we'll be through.
Today's movie was pretty awesome.
It was. All right.
I like that Spider.
I have a little bit of an issue calling this a B movie, Tony.
Yeah, I was going to say, the beginning part of it probably has a bigger budget for, those few shots than some of the B movies we've watched.
I don't know about if it... Maybe they were just really smart about how they use the budget, Tony.
Yeah.
But more to the point, this is a movie that set out to do exactly what it did.
Yeah.
You know, we've been talking about doing Wolf Cop on here, going back and forth about that, and Wolf Cop is definitely not a high-budget movie, but it's... There's... B movies need to be kind of they're trying to be something more than they are.
Yeah.
And with this movie, with Big Ass Spider, I really did not get that vibe. I forgot that they nailed the tone and the look and everything that they wanted to get for this movie. It's a fun movie, and it's not necessarily even making fun of itself. A lot of these are so bad it's good, kind of fun to watch because the deliveries are awful. This is just a comedy.
Yeah.
With a really awesome giant spider in it.
Yeah, it's a creature feature with some really good comedy elements. And it never was too serious about things either.
But it didn't, you felt like that the spider element was pretty standard for a creature feature. They didn't do anything ridiculous with the spider. They just had the people react in fun ways.
Yeah.
And it was about the, the interactions between the characters. So the script and the dialogue and stuff were just really, really solid. And the Mexican security guard steals the show.
Yeah, he does.
And it's sad. I say it's sad. I mean, it's not sad, but he's so funny in this that you forget how funny the other guy is. The exterminator guy is pretty funny on his own.
Yeah.
In the opening of the movie, especially when he's flirting with that nurse, I thought that was great. They had, he has great chemistry with almost everybody in this movie, and just bounces off of them.
Even with the lady that's trying to pay him in cherry bread loaves.
That's just, it's coming with that great shot where he just tosses it over his shoulder and it's lands on the front seat with 8 other ones exactly like it, wrapped in cellophane.
I definitely have done computer work for food before, but I don't think I'd be coming back if that's all I was getting paid in.
It needs to be good food, Tony.
Yeah.
That's the problem. If you're going to pay somebody in food, cook them a spread, right? Make them happy to be eating your food.
I don't know. I've come into my work before, and it was 4 different types of beef jerky and a 12-pack of Mountain Dew. That was a pretty good gift for fixing a computer.
Okay, yes, but you're not. What I'm saying is they didn't get you trail mix.
Yeah.
I mean, not to knock trail mix. I'm sure it has its benefits, but that is not the kind of thing you get as a thank you for not paying someone.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so he's funny to start with, and then you get to this Mexican security guard. And maybe it's the accent, and I'm just super racist, Tony. But he was
No,
hilarious.
it's like she's doing that intentionally over the top. I believe isn't that the security guard was Jose Ramos, right?
I don't know, and I don't know who Jose Ramos is. To my shame, Tony. But
I'm pretty sure that's the character.
If only we could look it up and find out.
A lawyer who's been in a lot of movies, including like Gone in 60 Seconds and things like that.
Oh yeah, Jose Ramos. Yeah, that's him.
Yep.
Okay. But again, he's putting on the accent. Like, the accent is half of the reason why I laugh, and just his cadence with it is so... Oh, man.
There was also just like
the
dumb, funny security guard, though, too. Like, even without the accent, he would have been funny. It just definitely put it over the top.
You know how I'm going to help you? Like a Robin help a Batman. Like, I forget what he goes. He goes to, like, Sancho Panza and then to, like, Hall & Oates. Like, what is... He just runs through this list of, like, sidekick characters.
He's, like, entirely freaked out by spiders, too.
I do like interesting. I mean, he's not a particularly deep character, but I did like that he's just like, no, I go with you. I was told to help you, and they like, obviously far beyond the Call of Duty for him to be still helping this guy, like shooting a missile up, a tractor trailer sized spider's butt.
Yeah,
shoot it in the butt. I cannot think of hardly any like legitimate complaints about this movie.
Yeah, like they even gave the spider enough screen time, and it was different enough that it never got samey as well. Because sometimes he's rampaging through a park, like stabbing people through the chest. Sometimes he's just like on top of the building and everything. It was definitely a giant menacing spider. This movie delivered on the title, delivered on everything.
Well, the great thing with the spider too is that because the gimmick is that it gets bigger, you get to have different types of scenes with it. Like the first scene where he's in the engine room with the spider and he's hunting it down.
When you first see it, whenever the doctor's doing the autopsy.
That too, yeah. That was almost like not really super scary, but it was definitely like leaning more towards pure horror.
Yeah.
And then you kind of get back into the comedy, but definitely that smaller spider is a different type of threat and possibly more scary than when it gets giant. But then you have like the sort of, car-sized spider that's running around like stabbing people, and then you get the really giant spider that's climbing up to the top of buildings. And all of those were different. Like you kind of got that sort of progression of sort of coolness with the spider growing.
Yeah.
And that opening was really cool, too, because not that sometimes this is bad. I didn't really feel like it worked that well in John Wick when you, like, open at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But to start off at that point and be like, hey, guys, this is going to get really cool, all right?
Well,
We're going to have fun getting here, but just in case you're wondering, the spider gets really big.
It started out with a cover of like one of the best Pixies songs, like all in slow motion with people on fire and everything. It was fantastic.
Digital fire, to be fair.
Yeah, but
There's
still,
a lot of digital fire in this movie.
Yeah, but it didn't bother me. Like, I don't know what was different. Where none of the bad effects of B movies bothered me in this one.
Well, like I said, they did what they set out to do here, Tony. I think that.
I also think it was better cameras and better framing just overall. Because the movie, there's not a scene that really looks bad in this. It's just solid.
If I was going to complain about anything in this movie, well, there's two things I could complain about. But the first thing, if you're talking about camera work, I was not a huge fan of the overexposed look. Like, especially in the hospital, you could tell they had that aperture way open. And I was like, guys, does it need to be this, washed out and bright? I don't, I didn't. I'm sure there were good reasons that they had for doing it, but it felt like a little bit too much to me. And the other thing, it's
like the opposite of Daredevil last night, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, yes, we will. We will talk about that later. But the other thing was that the female character was like especially after last week when we had that all female ensemble cast and they're driving the plot and everything. And you get to this one and she's just the princess at the top of the castle.
Pretty much.
That is the only contribution. Now, I mean, they make her like military and give her a gun and she's supposed to be tough and everything, but she doesn't ever actually matter to the plot other than we gotta go get the girl, which I do like that he's just like, I'm gonna kill the spider and kiss the girl. I like that when that was a great just sort of like, this is his goal. It's very simple, but you can relate to it.
Yeah, it's not like she was completely weak or just completely like she's useless in the fact that she didn't do anything to the spider really, but not in the fact that she was just like, say, at a Starbucks or something and got abducted and dragged to the top. She was like actively involved with trying to kill the spider at least.
Yeah. Which is not to say, and by the way, again, another great aspect of the, like I said earlier, everybody has great chemistry. She works really well back and forth with, especially the lead guy. What's his face? Alex Mathis. No, wait.
Yeah, it's Alex Mathis. Played by Greg Grunberg. Excuse me. Sorry, Greg.
Yeah, anyway. My wife says that he's used to be a daytime television star or something, or...
He's been in a lot of stuff. He's got 100-some credits on IMDb.
Very, very, like, I mean, I'm not going to go over the top, but he just seems like he just knows what he's doing. He brought exactly the level of fun to it. And especially, I think that, that sometimes when you get comedians on stage, like, they sort of compete, and I felt like maybe if it was me, I would have been like, man, the security guy is getting all the good lines, but... He didn't seem to. I mean, of course, you've got editing and cuts and stuff like that. Maybe he was super pissed on set, but it didn't seem like he was trying to one up him or anything with the way he was delivering it. He was just like, "This is it. This is where we're going." And it
but if you're in a movie like this, you gotta know it's not going to be the most popular thing in the world. So if you got someone that's actually dropping good lines and everything, it's just going to help you.
Yeah,
everyone here kind of had like a little bit of a smirk going on. It seemed like they were having a really good time with this movie.
I just remember specifically, and this is not a movie, but I remember a time on the Jimmy Kimmel show where he had Jim Carrey on, and it was like this weird sort of like genital measuring contest between them, where like Jim Carrey wasn't really okay with the fact that Jimmy Kimmel was the star of the show and, the one who was making the jokes. Like, it wasn't, like, hostile or anything. You didn't get the sense that these two guys were, like, at least on camera, they weren't, but he was just, I don't know. It was like he was trying to make the jokes and Jimmy was trying to make the jokes, and neither one of them was bouncing off of the other one that much. They were just like, I have my jokes, you have your jokes.
Yeah.
Joke fight!
I think the worst I've seen is it might have been it was on a talk show and Dennis Miller was there, and I think it was with Greg Giraldo or some other comedian, and this other comedian's actually dropping material and getting really good laughs from the crowd, and Dennis Miller just shakes his head. He's like, I didn't know we were bringing material to this show. Like, in the middle of a live interview.
Wow.
It just makes it very uncomfortable, and they go back and forth for like 5 minutes about using material instead of doing an interview.
I mean, he's a comedian.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to have a comedian on, you better expect them to be funny.
Yeah, it's
I guess if he got up and did a whole routine or something, that would be...
Yeah, he dropped a few one-liners. That's all he did. Like, and if you think that Louis C.K. doesn't go on to a talk show with at least one little bit planned, then you're not paying attention to it. Like, he'll make material for a show that he kind of shoehorns in, and, like, they practice it a little bit beforehand, but, like, the delivery feels natural and everything, so it feels like it could have happened from the interview, but it's still material. And Dennis Miller just, like, went in and winged it, and he didn't prepare anything, and the other guy did, and that's why he felt like he was all threatened.
I think that's on... I don't even know who Dennis Miller is. Not a celebrity smart guy, a comedian smart guy. But, I mean, I'll even practice stuff for the podcast, Tony. I'll be like... I'll say to my wife, like, I'm thinking about telling the story in the podcast. Let me run it by you. And sort of like... I prepare for this. I mean, and this is just like us talking on a webcam and on the internets. I don't know why you wouldn't go to an interview without like an idea of, I'm going to say this thing.
There have been times where I've just winged it on here, but I try to at least think of a few things or look up TV tropes and all that.
Well, listen, I mean, there is stuff that's off the cuff. I don't have a script here. Occasionally,
for an hour and a half of a pre-prepared script or something like that. This isn't Radio Lab.
But you know, I'll write stuff down, and I'm like, I think this was a good experience. I should talk about it. This is a good one.
Yeah. What else is there about Big Ass Spider?
Oh man, I don't know. Like, it's just a simple, fun, you know, story. I like that the hero was competent. You know, as far as talking about character stuff, I think that the fact that he was actually legitimately good at his job and knew where the spider would go, except for that very end part where he's like, he wants to stay away from people, like far away from people, and they're like, the spider's headed towards downtown, sir, and he's like, or not that. But I mean, he predicted the spider's moves. He kind of knew what was going on, and like him and the security guard actually like worked together to figure stuff out. You know, the security guard wasn't just there for the laughs. He felt like he contributed to the plot, unlike the female character.
Yeah.
And I just like, I thought it was very well orchestrated for what it was. And we talked.
It's the best B movie I've probably seen in about a year. Like, it might be the best B movie we've put on this podcast, in all honesty. Like, as far as like an actual solid movie, maybe Zombie or Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies is better, like, or more fun. But both of them were pretty much perfect for a B movie.
Like, half the fun in Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies is like Stonewall Jackson's incredible fake beard.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's just amazing. Like, it starts out as one thing, and then like halfway through production, they switch to a completely different beard, and it's awesome and fake again. You know, they don't have that kind of thing in this movie. It's just fun on it. Like, it means to be fun.
I experienced that in real life once.
What? Fake beard change?
Oh, it was a fake hair change. Like, this was whenever I was doing security at this business expo, and Donald Trump was on the stage about like 30 feet from me.
Oh yeah?
You watch his hair repart itself live. Just slowly, it's like moving around, moving upward, realigning itself, and just moving. I've never seen something that looked more like a separate living creature than Donald Trump's hair.
Donald Trump is an interesting character.
Yeah.
He is one of those people. I'm kind of working on this. I don't know if it's a theory exactly, but it's a mental model of fame and accomplishment and how those two things go together. Because there are a lot of people in our history who we know about as great achievers, partly because they achieved great things, but also because they really worked hard to be known as people who achieved great things.
Yeah.
People like Thomas Edison, like, was a great inventor, admittedly, but he also marketed himself. Like, he worked to create an image of the American inventor, this guy who's creating these things from raw thoughts and hard work, and like, you know, and he half of his stuff was him. He surrounded himself with a bunch of really smart engineers.
Yeah.
You know, like, he didn't invent the light bulb by himself.
Yeah.
He wasn't sitting there in his lab alone, like, trying out different filaments. He had like 100 guys at Menlo Park.
Yeah.
And he's the guy who invented the light bulb. And like Harry Houdini, admittedly, you know, a pretty good escape artist, but from all accounts was not the greatest magician of his era as far as like some of the tricks that he could do other than escaping. But he billed himself as this amazing magician, and so people bought into it. He had a good marketing campaign for himself.
I know you have a big thing for P.T. Barnum for doing that, even though he was kind of a crazy con man to begin with.
Yeah, definitely. Although P.T. Barnum more marketed his stuff than himself, I think. It's kind of, I don't know exactly how to. If you read his autobiography, he's very frank about like who he is, and he doesn't seem to be trying to paint himself as anything greater than. He almost gets by on just like not caring.
Yeah,
he might be downplaying how hard he worked. He's trying to come off as this folksy sort of, you know, crazy guy, and like in reality, he worked very hard to build up his, you know, empire and fortune. But the one reason I really wanted to bring this up, and I alluded to this last podcast. Sorry to the video people, we didn't get the video up on that one. But hopefully this one will be up.
Yeah.
But I wanted to mention Coral Castle, because one of the things that I realized when I went to Coral Castle is that all of the mystery and the sort of like questions and supernatural insinuations around Edward Leeds Scullin, the guy who built it, he encouraged that.
Yeah.
He actively, like, okay, so here's the story, right? So he comes across here, he does build the castle, he's building it for a Sweet 16, ostensibly. I'm going to say that part of the story is true, because he seems like he does seem kind of like he's still got some, he's weird still. Despite the fact that he's a genius, he's weird. But he's building this castle.
Geniuses.
Do what?
There's never been any weird geniuses.
He's building this castle in Florida, and people, he's mining out this coral and putting it together and stuff and telling people it's for Agnes, and people ask him, how does he do it? And he just sort of like knowingly looks at it, well, it's not that difficult if you know how to do it. Or, well, I know the secrets of the ancient Egyptians. And he would just give these sort of non-answers, and people have latched on, people have latched onto that and acted like, oh, he had some mystical power. And then you find out, oh, he came from 3 generations of stonemasons. That probably is how he knew how to lift heavy rocks.
Yeah.
But
I'm going to become a Freemason one day, but I just got to find the right lodge. These people didn't like that I wasn't dressed in a suit jacket because I don't own a suit.
Well, you should own a suit, Tony. Everybody needs to own a suit.
That's
anyway,
expensive.
To conclude my story, more or less. Oh, and so he actively cultivates this sort of mysticism about him, despite the fact that there is no mysticism. He takes a picture of himself with a tripod and a block and tackle lifting coral out of the ground, Tony. But you can believe he floated it like a balloon if you want to. It seems to me like he was just working really hard and worked for a long time.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he gets he's built his castle on one location, and then he moves it. Did I tell the story about how he moved it, Tony?
No.
Okay, I told this story to someone, and I was afraid it was on the podcast already from last week. But I talked about how he moved it, and before I went on vacation, I mentioned that I thought it was because of some property dispute, and he lost the property. That was not the case, Tony. He moved Coral Castle because he found out that the US 1 highway was going to come through. He bought the land for dirt cheap, that it was going to come through that way.
So he just wanted it so that it could be better marketed over by
He wanted a tourist attraction. He built it to be a tourist attraction.
And like all those cities that died because Route 66 wasn't the one that they used anymore to get to Vegas and all these other towns, like whenever they put in a new turnpike or interstate, he didn't want that happening to Coral Castle. He just wanted it like at a primary spot. That's awesome.
And there is interstate down there, but it's like, I mean, by the time you get down to that far in Florida, I think it's mostly ended and you're just like in the main part of Florida. So it's right there on the main turnpike. And also, because he bought this land for dirt cheap after a hurricane, he was able to sell off the surrounding land to like gas stations and other people who also wanted to be in the prime, future highway space for a tidy profit. I mean, you can talk about some kind of weird mystical powers if you want, but the dude was just smart and had some good opportunities and he jumped on them.
Yeah.
So it was really exciting to see that and kind of like get the insight into, we have this sort of legend built up and this sort of mystical, this person's off here. So I think Nikola Tesla is very similar also. Despite the fact that he and Edison had that war back and forth, I think he very much wanted to appear a certain way to people. And that he had an image that he tried to create and said some things. I think that a lot of his stuff about the death ray and transmitting power around the world, like those are ideas he kind of had just a vague notion of, but he pumped it up big because he knew it would be sexy and sound cool. And now we're like, where is Tesla's death ray? Probably he didn't have one, guys. Probably that was something that he sort of thought up like in the middle of the night sometime and like, I could do that, and didn't build it.
He was like the last mad scientist, really, or one of the last ones.
But he wasn't. Okay, so like Edward Leeds Scullin, Tesla was weird, but I don't know. I mean, it depends on what you mean by mad. He wasn't trying to bring the dead back to life or anything.
Yeah,
he was probably happy they were gone. He's kind of an autistic guy.
the perception though of making a death ray, of being able to just like make fields of light bulbs and everything light up through ground transmission, like through all sorts of different things in his life, and dying penniless, falling in love with a pigeon, things like that. Even like the celibacy angle is a little bit weird. Like
I legitimately think that's a mental thing, though. Like, I think that he was
like,
repulsed by other people and sexuality in general.
yeah, just probably completely asexual.
I don't know about, well, it may be less asexual and more, like, I said autism before, and I meant autism. Like, I think that he had a hard time relating to other people on their level, and that is, you know, you have the famous story about how Edison said he would pay him like $10,000 if he could get a generator started, and he does, and then Edison's like, I was not serious. I think that some of the misunderstanding there is because Tesla legitimately didn't, like,
He took
connect
people
on that level of sarcasm. He thought, you know, he took everything that, you know, that was said literally, and when Edison wasn't being literal about $10,000, he's like, I'm leaving then. You gypped me. And I mean, you can go back. I'm sure fans of Tesla are mad at me, and you're like, no, Edison gypped him. Maybe he did. Also, sorry for fans of gypsies that I said gyp. But, anyway. So I just like that idea of this idea of the great man being largely a self-constructed sort of cultural construct. That it's not that we take great men and revere them necessarily, but we let people tell us that they are great men, which is getting back to Donald Trump. We let Donald Trump tell us that he is rich, and he certainly has more money than me and you, Tony, but on the scale of vastly rich people, I think he's kind of in the small fish area.
Yeah. He's a real estate mogul. He hasn't done a whole lot to like actually change the world.
Well, his casino went out of business, right?
Yeah.
Like, how smart do you have to be to lose money gambling?
Yeah.
The house always wins. It's famously true.
Yeah.
This is bad business if you can't keep your casino open.
While we're on the subject of mad scientists, did you see the headline, World's First Head Transplant Volunteer? Like, could experience something worse than death.
I was going to say I debate the notion that there is something worse than death, but I guess, like, intense pain for the entirety of your life would be worse than death. I think at some point people do actually get to the point where they're like, I would rather die than be in this pain.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would go for it if it was a actual shot.
Yeah. Well, it's an Italian doctor and his team trying to help out a guy from Russia that has a very, very severe disease where his body is basically like falling away. Like it's pretty terrible. But it's just crazy that they're actually considering doing like a full-on head transplant right now.
Well,
they should probably call it body
they're
transplant.
Talking about a full body transplant. Like his head, he's going to keep his head.
Yeah.
Everything else is going to go
just
away.
Weird phrasing. It needs to be a body transplant, not a head transplant.
But it seems kind of feasible, right? Like we can get other like organs to, to stay without the body attacking them. So in theory, we can make it work together. I don't think he's ever going to move.
Yeah. It's also like
at this stage.
There's a lot of there's some precedence for it if you look up a bunch of like old Russian experiments where they can keep a chimp's head alive, like wired up to a bunch of stuff for a while, or a dog's head alive for a little while.
I'm pretty sure they did chimp full body transplants as well.
Yeah, for some reason they just put the head on backwards though. It was really weird.
Maybe that made it easier to hook up to the stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor, Tony.
Blood systems and everything. They're saying that the reason why he might go mad though is like all of the body chemistry and everything just flooding his brain. They're wondering if he's even going to be able to stay coherent like after that point. But like if you look at the guy, he's definitely wheelchair bound and his body is just decaying. So why not like use it somebody else's body who's brain dead? Just see if it works.
Well, and here's the thing too, Tony. If you're going to do it, somebody's got to do it first, right?
Yeah.
Like there was a first heart transplant, and that guy didn't live more than 60 days after the transplant, but it was a successful transplant, and that paved the way for other people to then be able to do the same thing.
Yeah, to get liver transplants, to do all of that.
I think probably liver transplants happened before that. I think the heart was kind of complicated because you had to get all those keep everything pumping while you were
like
the machine.
There had to probably be a lot of machinery invented just to make that work.
Yeah. But once it did work, then they knew the pitfalls, they knew some of the stuff that was going on. They could say, oh, well, that didn't work this time. We need to change it up and do this. So the fact that this guy is doing this is not only possibly good for him, especially if he's at the point where he's like, I don't care if I die, guys. Like, maybe there's a chance that I could stop suffering or I could die, but, let's go for it. But also there's the thing that he's, paving the way for other people. If this actually works, or even if it doesn't work, if they can learn something and be like, this went wrong, we can do it better next time, then he's doing a favor for, all of medical science. Yeah,
it's a bold choice. It's like, if you're at the point where you would rather die than feel the pain, then why not? It's kind of like, it's not as an extreme case, but Vice put out a video a few days ago of one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. Like the re-engineering of viruses to fight cancer. Have you seen anything on that?
I had heard a little bit about, sort of that idea.
Well, in 1910, there were a bunch of sex workers that were getting rabies vaccines because they live in squalor and they might get bitten by a rat or a dog or something that has rabies. So they were getting that vaccine, and they noticed that it immediately started helping get rid of cervical cancer. Like the little tumors and everything were actually starting to shrink. So these the doctors had an idea that there might be some sort of correlation there. Fast forward to now, I think in 2007 is whenever they first started doing this with mice and everything. And there's been some pretty absolutely incredible things happening. They were showing what was happening with these mice, where they were given brain tumors, basically like they were injected with a few cancer cells and it grew into a brain tumor. They put a modified measles virus into them, and it's designed only to attack the cancer cells and be harmless against human cells. And 9 out of 10 times it was completely successful in removing the tumor. Like people within a couple, or the rats within a few weeks were literally losing the entire tumor. And then they finally went to human trials on this, and they're showing a 7-year-old girl with leukemia that was given the prognosis that she was going to die. They were done. They couldn't do anything else except for this one last thing where they modified an AIDS virus to fight leukemia.
See, that's the aspect that I'd heard. I heard that they gave somebody AIDS to fight the cancer.
Yeah.
I think I heard that on the Rooster Teeth podcast actually recently. They were talking about that a couple episodes ago. That's where I'd kind of heard about it. Sorry.
Yeah. And whenever they give this girl the cancer, she goes into, they gave her 3 billion, AIDS viruses at once, basically. Just dumped it into her system.
Are there that many? I thought there was just the AIDS
3
virus.
billion cultured.
Okay. I was going to say, that. I mean, is it that diverse?
No, it's
confused.
not.
I know that the cold virus changes every year, but...
Yeah, but this is they just fill her with the AIDS virus. She all of a sudden falls into 106-degree fever for almost 2 weeks, and then whenever she recovers from it, not even 2 weeks later, she's back in school. It's not even that there's little markers of leukemia left. She lost 7 pounds of tumors. She's just in full remission and everything now, and she's not infected with the AIDS virus anymore either, because it was a modified, weaker version of the AIDS virus, so her immune system was able to fight it off.
Well, that is awesome, man. You always got to be skeptical about these cancer cure stories, though. I mean, maybe you don't. Maybe eventually there's going to be the one that's like, oh yeah, that's the way, we got it now. But for my entire life, that's been the story, right? Every year, we found that cure for cancer. It's whatever dumb thing, shark cartilage, inject mustard up your nose, you won't die of cancer.
They've done 39 trials of on leukemia with the AIDS virus, and it's worked 90% of the time, 100% remission.
90% of the time, it works 100% of the time. Let's slide that one in there, Tony.
9 out of 10 people are completely cured from it.
Well, listen.
Who knows if it'll come back in 5 years? But one woman's had it for 18 months, and she hasn't even had a hint of it come back.
That is exciting news. Although I think still people, I like the idea of a cure for cancer, but people could do a lot more to prevent. And we were talking about on my vacation. I was tweeting back and forth about sunbathing and how it doesn't make sense to me, really.
Yeah.
But also, really, really when you get your skin red, You understand that's because the sun has irradiated you to the point where you are burned? That's not okay.
Yeah.
You will get cancer from that. I mean, maybe not the first time or the second time, but, like, wear sunscreen, guys. It's a good idea.
I definitely wear a fair amount of sunscreen because I'm pastier than, like pretty much perfect paper sometimes. But, like, I also understand that I need to get, like, out there and get some vitamin D, too. I think that's part of the thing that people like about sun tanning is the way they feel afterwards. They feel energized. Their body needed a little bit of sunlight because most people aren't getting near enough sun, and those people are getting way too much sun.
Yeah, I'm not saying don't ever go out in the sun, but if you're going to be out there for prolonged periods of time, if you're working outside, if you're sunbathing or whatever, like, don't get too much. The suntans or the sunblock stuff is your friend. And wear a hat if you're like me and you don't have any hair to cover up.
Yeah, because that first, like, bald head sunburn, that one's pretty brutal.
That sucks. I got a hat for my vacation. I don't have it here, Tony. I would show everybody, but I got a straw hat. Covers my face, covers my head. I don't want to die of cancer. I really don't want to die of skin cancer.
Yeah. It seems so preventable.
I mean, not everything, like, you can still get stuff, right? Like, I don't smoke. I could still get lung cancer because my lungs could just decide the cells are just going to go weird now for a while and start replicating at an incredibly fast rate. And, that would suck, but, you can't prevent everything. But I'm saying, like, do what you can to stay as healthy as you can.
Yeah. I sort of accidentally quit smoking shisha. Like, it was kind of weird. I was smoking so much, and it was just like, it was a habit. Anytime I was writing, I needed to smoke shisha. Anytime I was doing this, I needed to smoke shisha. And smoking one bowl of shisha, they say, is the equivalent of getting a full pack of cigarettes of tar, and I was smoking 2 to 3 bowls of it a day.
Wow.
And, like, whenever I started this new job, like, the shops that I usually stopped at weren't on my way home anymore. So, like, it wouldn't enter into my mind whenever I passed them. I wouldn't get that actual cue. And then one of the times when I went out of my way to actually go get some because I was craving it, the place was closed inexplicably at like 1 p.m.
And like getting high on shisha, Tony. Either that or getting their cancer operated on.
Yeah, well, shisha's just tobacco and molasses. It tastes like you're smoking fruit.
Well,
it's pretty awful. But like
tobacco still gets you kind of high.
A little bit.
I mean, people smoke it for a reason, Tony. It's not just because they like cancer.
Although the best way to get tobacco high, and it's a very thin line, like if you smoke a cigar, even if you're not like really inhaling, if you inhale a little bit, you'll get pretty good nicotine buzz going. You inhale too much, and all of a sudden you're pretty much holding on to a toilet.
I think it's kind of like coffee, though. Like you start drinking it, it's like, oh, this really helps, and then like eventually it's just like, I just need my coffee now.
Yeah.
So,
but I haven't smoked in like 2 months because of that.
Well, that's good, Tony. Stay on the wagon.
I definitely feel better. Like I don't have any cravings. I don't have anything like that. So it was a good accident. Like I almost feel I was listening to the recording the other day, and I'm not like there's less little gasps and little rasps in the recording because of that. It's kind of awesome.
Did we have any questions today, Tony?
I believe we did.
Those the last couple of weeks, and I figured we had some last week we didn't get to. We told the people we would get to them, Tony.
Yeah, we told them.
We should get to them.
I only have 78 notifications. Hold on.
I might talk about soap here for a while if we need to.
Do that while I look this up.
All right. So I've been wanting some soap for a while, Tony. I'm not like...
If you've been wanting it for a while, you probably need it.
No. Okay, so I have soap. It's not like I don't have soap. I have body soap, though, Tony. I have the liquid stuff.
Yeah.
I have it in many different forms. I had several different bottles, and I was going through it, and like I kept telling my wife, I want some soap. And she'd be like, well, but it wasn't urgent because I still had some. But finally, the other day, I ran out of body soap. And the type of soap that I wanted, Tony, I wanted bar soap. I wanted it as solid. I'm sick of squirting liquid onto my... I don't know what it is, but like it doesn't stay on your washcloth right. Like you suds up a good bar on your washcloth, and you get those good thick lather, and you're just like, oh man, it slides all. It's nice. It's really nice. And I haven't had that in forever. It's been like several years since I've had a good bar soap. And so it's like, I am going to go and buy some bar soap. I'm out. My wife has sent me shopping. I have AJ with me. I will go buy bar soap. So there was a whole spiel of problems initially where I couldn't find it because it wasn't with the body care stuff. Like you have a whole rack of this is a smallish grocery store, so the organization's weird. But they had a whole rack of like shampoo and hair care products and like feminine products and all this stuff, and I was like, why is there not one single thing of soap? I will buy the body soap at this point. I just want soap. Couldn't find it. Went around the aisle to like where the dish soap was, and all of a sudden there it is. I'm like, okay, it's with the dish soap. So then there's like a whole rack of soap, and quite a bit of it is bar soap. So I start looking, and all I want is soap, Tony. I just want soap. You know what I couldn't find? I couldn't find just soap. Like, they have antibacterial bar soap and face moisturizing bar soap and, like, deodorant bar soap. It's like, I just want to rub soap on my body and get clean. That's all I want. Like, I had to go to the bottom shelf and, like, way back on the bottom shelf, like, all the way against the back, there was, like, 3 bars of Ivory soap that I managed to dig out so I could take a shower with just soap. Like, it didn't have anything extra. It just had white bar soap. It wasn't trying to kill any bacteria. It wasn't trying to make me smell better. It wasn't trying to, like, moisturize my skin. I'm in the shower. I'm getting the water pelted on me. I'm moist. That was an ordeal, Tony.
You know where they have soap?
Where do they have soap?
Your work.
No, I didn't want to drive there, though. Like, I get off at 1 o'clock in the morning, Tony. I don't want to go shopping for soap at 1 o'clock in the morning. I want to hang out with my buds for a couple minutes. I want to look at the red box. I want to talk about whatever, and then I want to go home. I don't want to shop. I just, like, that's not... I've been there for 8 hours already. It's late. Yeah. I don't do that if I don't have to. I go on separate trips. Plus, this was, like, when I was on my vacation, so I wasn't, like, at work. I went back to work yesterday, by the way. That was a lot of fun.
Was it all right? Like, were you refreshed and ready?
I was. I just missed all the guys at work, Tony. Like, I hadn't seen him in a while, and I was like, I'm kind of glad to go back and see Cody and Brentley and, Joey and Michael and and some of the new kids.
Sounds like
the new kids. Yes. I thought that all new kids suck, though, Tony. Like, we got a whole big crap of new kids, and we always, like, they're just terrible every time. And then we got this one dude named Suede who's never done this before, and he's freaking awesome. And I was like, why isn't everybody like Suede? Everybody needs to be like Suede, buddy. You guys don't know Suede. Nobody knows Suede. I'm just talking about stuff at this point. I hope Tony's got some questions lined up. But Suede, you're awesome. Keep it up, man.
The first question comes from the Shabbaroon. The Shabbaroon on Twitter.
The Shabbaroon?
Yes. The Shabbaroon.
We should tell people, by the way, anytime you want to tweet in a question, Tony gets his inbox full of notifications, but tweet us at HEPodcast or hashtag HEPodcast, and we will find your question and answer it if we like it.
The question is, did Adam discover beer in Eden?
What?
Yes.
Did Adam discover beer and what?
In Eden.
Oh. That's a deep theological question, Tony.
I'm going to say it's more likely he discovered wine. Like, just put some grapes in a jar and left them there for a while.
All right. Okay, so here's why it's a deep theological question, though, because both beer and wine require what?
Time and water.
They require the what do you call it? My mind is blanking. It's rotting, but like fancy word for rotting.
Fermentation.
Fermentation, right? Fermentation is decay. Correct?
So you're asking, is there decay in the Garden of Eden?
Yes. Is there decay in the Garden of Eden, Tony? Because this is before we get to original sin, we get to the fall, we get to the curse. Do things rot in Eden? Or is that part of Adam getting cursed and having to till the dust of the ground and like continually having to like fight against nature? You didn't think this was as deep a question as it was, did you?
No, I didn't. It's an interesting question. If you believe in the Garden of Eden, then I would say that beer is so good and that wine is so good that whatever God may be wanted it to exist. So yes, you could ferment it.
Well, considering that he like later on in the Bible it says wine is a mocker and strong drink is raging. I'm not sure if he wanted him to have that. He got in enough trouble without it as it was. However, there is, since we're on this topic of fun Bible stuff, there is a theory that after the flood, because of a massive upheaval, that the atmosphere of the earth actually changed, and that the fermentation process was muted at least before, but afterwards it became more more pronounced because of changes in the way the atmosphere worked and the sun came through. There's a whole theory about there's a water canopy over the earth or something. I don't know exactly how or if that was the way it was. But that is the sort of prevailing notion of why Noah got drunk after the flood. If you don't assume that it's just because he saw the entirety of civilization got wiped out and couldn't handle it, was that he got grapes, made it into grape juice, left it sit for a while, and didn't realize, that it would turn alcoholic at that point. And then when when it did, it was sort of like a surprise. He's like, "What is this stuff? This is super good. I remember this grape juice being like this before all that water came around. Oh, this is delicious." So there's a fun Bible fact for you guys, not Bible theory, that some people have. You're welcome to disagree with that if you want to. I don't care.
If Noah did in fact invent wine, then I owe him something. And you know that eventually down the line he'd be a cousin if that's true.
How long do you think it took him to invent distilled liquor?
Distilled liquor?
Yeah, because I think that's a relatively late. I don't think that they had that for a very long time in ancient times.
It was like wine and mead for a long time, and then I assume beer took a little bit of time to actually.
Well, even beer though is not distilled, right? That's just hops. I'm talking about whiskey type things where you have to boil it and then let the stuff condense down.
Would you even be able to do it before metal? Could you? You could probably create a clay distillery. It would just be really, really hard to do.
I think that probably your bigger problem is the piping.
Yeah.
I think distilleries would use glass now they probably use plastic piping.
It would be glass and glaze and everything else, but it would be hard to make all that before you have the molds and everything.
Well, glass is something you can blow and stretch and mold. You can make glass piping without a mold. I say mold
when
with your hands.
They actually start making glass like that, though, how long has contemporary glass that could handle being heated and doing the whole alchemist boiling thing? I'm guessing that's not more than 3,000 or 4,000 years. It's probably 2,000 or 3,000 years.
It may be less than 900 or 800 years, Tony, which I think is fascinating because there's a lot of things that we just kind of assume that you could do because the materials were there back then, but it took people a long time to discover a lot of stuff that we just. I know we take our cell phones for granted, but the stuff we even really basically take for granted, like glass, I think took a while to perfect. And
the history of glass can be traced back to 3,500 BCE in Mesopotamia. The first true glass was made in the coastal North Syria, Mesopotamia, or ancient Egypt. Apparently, there's entire shows on the history of glass. I might have to watch one of these.
Have you watched people blow glass before, Tony?
Oh, yeah. I'm in Colorado. Everybody's blowing glass. All the pipes are made of glass out here. So they actually have demonstrations where you go to the shop and they're showing you how they make these perfect ones. And it's not just pipes. There's also a lot of artists out here that do glass work. There's some really cool stuff. Some sculpture parks with these probably at least 1,000 pounds of glass, to make this giant glowing red star with these cool spikes coming out of it. There's a lot of cool stuff that people do with glass out here.
It's very cool. Glass is to watch someone work with glass by hand is just, I don't know, it's hypnotic.
Yeah, especially when they can make little figurines and stuff out of them by hand, and they're just using hot glass and pliers.
Yeah, little pincher pliers. Just pull.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Watching somebody make a horse figurine that they sell for $30 or something. It's you just pulled that out of nothing. It's incredible.
That's what art is, Tony.
Yeah.
There wasn't something there before, and then you turned it into something.
I'm just saying, it's most people don't really think about the art that goes into creating something like that whenever it's just on a store shelf.
I think that is true. I think that there's a lot of value added if you can see it being made.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Like even just like simple lamps and stuff like that, there's a lot of times where they screw up 10 of them making the perfect one. Like those are some of my favorite how it's made, just watching it go from like the silicate and everything getting superheated and then just molding into whatever. Even on a mass scale, it's art.
It very much is. I always wonder, like, I guess they just have molds for the stuff that you buy in the store, but like I'm always amazed at how cheap glassware is.
Yeah.
Like it's just super inexpensive to buy glass cups and glass pitchers and like glass everything that you want. Like if you're buying a glass thing that isn't like Pyrex or whatever, those things are like $10 at most.
And they will last forever, though.
Do what?
Like
yeah, glass,
stuff?
exactly. And you want to, like, it's not like plastic where it's going to get, like, kind of dingy and pitted, and after a while you want to get rid of it. Like, glass is just, I mean, it's
after
classy.
the 20 leftover, like, whatever, it starts to, like, take on weird colors and things like that. Now, glass, like, especially Pyrex stuff, like, that's an investment.
Like your stainless, or not stainless steel, I'm sorry, your cast iron pans.
Yeah.
Everybody get some cast iron pans because they're the best.
I'm always suspect of cast iron just because of plumbing. Like, it's one thing to make a pan out of it and use it all the time, and that's awesome, but, like, to have cast iron pipes and everything, they just rot out.
Oh, man, I don't want to talk about it. I have cast iron pipes in my bathroom, and they're going to go one day, and I'm going to have to pay so much money.
That's whatever you sell the house right before that happens.
I'll move to Colorado, Tony. I've got my wife working on it right now.
It's a big change in income. I'll tell you that much. Although, like, I actually found an apartment that would be around the same, or a condo that I could buy that would be around the same rent as I am right now, so I might actually become a homeowner in the next couple months, but we'll see. I've got, like, one more month that I can pay off my car. It was supposed to be a 4-year loan, and I paid it off in, like, 14 months.
Now, that's the way to do it, Tony.
Yeah.
You got to get those loans paid off. That monthly, anything monthly. Like, I just want to, like, I kind of want to get a new car, but I'm like, I don't want a car payment. I'll just fix this one. And I got to, like, been putting off fixing it for a month now.
Yeah.
Need a fuel pump. Do we have other questions, or was that it?
There are questions, but they're so buried I cannot get to them. Actually, here's one.
You need to favorite these or something, Tony. Come on.
In Raiders of the Lost Ark, why didn't Indiana Jones just let the Nazis take the Ark back and melt Hitler? This is from Nick Nafster, 79.
I was going to ask, who sent this in?
Nick Polo.
What's his Twitter handle, Tony?
Leotis. It's Nick, Nafster 79. He's actually competed in the Writers Arena before.
Oh, okay.
I think he was against you, but I'm not 100% sure. There's a lot of battles that have happened.
A good one this last week, by the way, between me and whoever it was that I thought I was up against.
Yeah,
I was happy with. I thought his story. Did I lose that one, Tony? I haven't checked.
You lost it by like 4 votes. It was a pretty close one.
But I was happy to lose to his story because it was a good story. I was happy with my story too. I thought it was a good story, but I was like, oh, this guy, he bringing the noir style. Anyway, can we just assume that Indy, he did know about it, didn't he?
I think he did.
Because at the end, he tells her to avert his eyes or the lady to avert her eyes from the Ark when they open it up.
Maybe he was worried they'd find a way to weaponize it.
Yeah, maybe they just thought that, like,
to Hitler.
Yeah, what if? Yeah, I was gonna say, like, that's a whole alternate history thing where, like, you take the Ark of the Covenant, you bring it out on the battlefields of World War II, and then just, like, open it up when you put a string on it or something, and just, like, yank the strings as the Allied army comes and, like, melt all their skulls off.
Yeah, just put a bunch of balloons on it. So
That's the most ridiculous image ever, but it would be totally effective. I think that the image of the German guy, like, hiding in the bush with the string attached to the lid of the Ark of the Covenant as the whole Allied army charges forward.
That should have been a scene. Now I want to see a short film of that.
I mean, but, like, in theory, that could have worked. I don't know. Maybe he didn't know. Here's the question: like, he's going after the Ark. What? And then the Nazis are going after the Ark, if they think it's dangerous, why are they poking around at it? Do they not know the stories? Like, it's going back to our Bible theme this week, Tony. Like, it's not subtle in the Bible. You don't mess around with the Ark. You open the Ark, you get fried. Like, God killed 3,000 of his own people when they opened the Ark. I think it might have been more. There's a bunch of people that just like gather around like, oh, what's this? The Philistines captured the Ark, and then they send it back. They pop the lid. Bam! There's just like a whole, like, I don't even know why there were 3,000 people there, but there's just like a whole mass of people just drop dead because they mess with the Ark, and they're like, we will not touch this.
There's a lot of people who think that the actual Ark is in Ethiopia right now at this one church it's been protected for a long time. All the monks that work around it slowly die off. So there's a lot of people that suspect that the actual box might just have something radioactive in it.
I was going to say, it sounds just like you got like a whole box of radium there, Tony.
Yeah. So like it's just like slowly killing off these monks and everything, but nobody's allowed to go check it. You're not allowed to bring like a Geiger counter into the church.
The great thing about the previous part of that story, and let's tie this into the World War thing eventually too, but before it gets back to the Israelites and God kills all those people, the Philistines had captured the Ark because the Israelites basically thought the same thing as the Nazis, right? Like, they're like, this Ark is pretty awesome. It's got God attached to it or something. Let's tote it into battle and we'll win. And God gets pissed at him and he's like, I am not the box, all right? I gave you the box. The box has some cool stuff in it. I am not the box. I'm not going with you. You guys lose. So they lose the battle. The Philistines take the box, take it back to the the temple of their gods, stick it in front of their gods, be like, look, we've subjugated the Israelites' God. And then God gets pissed at them. He's like, no, you did not subjugate me. All right. And like, so he knocks their idol over like 3 times in a row. So the third night, they keep setting him back up, night after night. Like, what's going on here? The idol keeps falling over. The third night, the idol, like, head and hands just break off and go skittering across the floor. And the Philistines are like, this is weird. And then he gives them, this is the best plague ever. Because they capture the Ark of the Covenant, God gives the Philistines hemorrhoids and rats. They have a plague of hemorrhoids and rats. And to deal with this, they make 5 golden rats and 5 golden hemorrhoids and put them on the Ark and send them back to Israel. They're like, this is our we're just not.
Do you think they actually like forged golden hemorrhoids, or do you think it was just gold nuggets?
I like to think of the idea of a goldsmith somewhere forging, like, he gets the order, right? Like, it's the best goldsmith in Philistia or wherever they're at. And the priests come, the priests of the other god come to him and is like, look, we've been having some problems. The guy's like, I know, man. I've been dealing with it too. And he's like, well, here, we're going to deal with it. There's rats crawling over the place. Well, what are we going to do? Well, we need you to make 5 golden rats. He's like, okay, yeah, I can do that. And 5 golden, hemorrhoids. Yeah, he's like, excuse me? 5 golden what? He's like, 5, the thing we've been dealing with, right? It's kind of the hemorrhoids. Just 5 gold ones of those. Can you? The guy's like somebody had to build those.
Hopefully they just sent like a jar of like preparation H2.
So I want to see the version of Indiana Jones where Germany's overrun with rats and hemorrhoids. Like Hitler's like, give it back! Send the Ark back to the Egyptian people!
Would explain why he's so cranky in Downfall.
9999! Oh.
Hey, that would be like out of End of Days where the numbers are backwards and upside down.
Oh.
Instead of 666, 999.
That was the worst plot device ever. That's so offensive. I mean, not offensive like I'm offended, just like as insulting my intelligence. Like, yes, John was looking at Roman numerals of the 666, but it was upside down. That's why he wrote down 3 score 600 and I don't even know.
Yeah.
He writes out the numbers, what I'm saying. He doesn't write 666.
There's no ambiguity.
He writes the letters 666.
Yeah.
Or the equivalent in the Bible.
It's all Bible trivia today.
Yeah, all the Bible trivia. I'm dropping the Bible knowledge on y'all.
We did get one last question, and this is calling you out, Al.
Oh, no.
Rich Alex at Rich Alex on Twitter, one of the TWA judges and an awesome dude. You guys should follow him.
He is awesome.
He asks, one of Al's complaints with Horns was that the main character doesn't change, doesn't grow. I have also heard him praise Inside Llewellyn Davis, in which the main character is exactly the same at the beginning and end. Please explain why in Horns, which has a plot, it's bad, but Inside Llewellyn Davis, which is, as far as I can tell, plotless, it is great.
Well, I think calling it Inside Llewellyn Davis plotless is a kind of a mistake. I mean, stuff happens. The plot is he does this and he does this and he does this and he goes here and he does there. And I have to think about my answer here, Tony, because this is I have an answer. This is an question that I sort of can answer, but like it's complicated and my brain hurts and I'm a little bit tired today. But the type of story that Llewyn Davis is, I think that the point is that he doesn't change.
Yeah.
The point of the story is that he is crippled by his inability to change. Now, I understand why you didn't like the movie. I didn't particularly enjoy it on my first viewing either, although I haven't seen it a second time. But thinking about it, I've sort of grown to appreciate it a little bit more. But the idea in Llewyn Davis is that he's so rigid in his idea of what art is and what, his definition of folk music. He won't play with other people. He won't sell out in his, in whatever instance, that like it ultimately bites him in the butt, right? Like the movie ends and he's miserable because of his inability to change. Whereas in Horns, you have it's a lot more conventional in its method of storytelling. There is a type of movie in which the main character doesn't change. Like for instance, the Usual Suspects, right, Tony?
Yeah.
There's no giant like character arc in that. Nobody changes per se. It's about the progression of the story. But in Horns, you get the sense that at the beginning, this is a flawed person, and at the end, he hasn't overcome anything within himself, and yet he overcomes the external. To me, it seems very hollow. It seems like that he just deals with the outside, just deals with, this is, I have to find the killer of my girlfriend. But I don't think that he really becomes a better person. That's part of my problem with Birdman, too. Like, I rewatched Birdman yesterday with my wife, and on the second rewatching especially, I just couldn't help thinking, like, Regan Thompson is a huge douchebag. And he doesn't really ever stop being a huge douchebag. So why do I care? Like, he gets his play and everything pulls off okay, but and it may be intentional in that one, although I can't really tell. Like, he never realizes that he's a huge douchebag. He never realizes that he's putting his art in front of his family and everything else that actually matters and acting like this is something super important when actually it's just a play. He's lost his wife and he's lost his daughter and nobody respects him.
Losing his girlfriend.
What?
He's losing his girlfriend.
Yeah, he's exactly. Nobody respects him because he's a massive douche, but all he can think about is, I want to get this play, I want to get this play, I want to do this play. And for me, that was kind of this is obviously a much higher caliber film than Horns, but for me, that was a major turnoff. Like, especially on the second viewing, I was like, I kind of felt it in the first one, but I really sort of solidified, like, wait, yeah, this guy he's all self-absorbed and he has no room for anybody else, and we're supposed to care whether his play goes well? No. Anyway. Sorry. So that I think is the main difference, is that if the main character overcomes the external, like Llewyn Davis suffers for his unchanging character. Daniel Radcliffe's character in Horns does not. He gets what he wants and overcomes the external without ever dealing with anything internal, and therefore it feels like it has not very much weight. To me. This is my explanation. You're welcome to disagree, obviously. These are all, sort of ephemeral, sort of gauzy ideas. Maybe they're, you can argue both ways, and I certainly don't mind if you liked horns, but for me, that's how it feels. That is the difference that I see. Do you agree or disagree, Tony?
I agree to a point, although I think there is some change that's happened that's kind of before the movie even starts. Whenever he's going from action hero to what he is, and he's having a hard time. Like there's that part where he's kind of tempted to just go back and do it again and make all this money and become Birdman one more time and everything. So I think he is like struggling with the change he's already made.
Okay, yes, but what I'm saying is it's not about whether or not he's Birdman is not the point. That is not a change. Him going from being an action hero to being an artsy Broadway guy is not the kind of change I'm talking about. They talk about like how he was sleeping with people at a party that his wife was at, like way back in the day, during his Birdman days, or at least maybe they don't say they give an exact day, but it's clear that this was closer to the height of his fame, and that he threw a knife at his wife or something. Like, these are not things that have anything to do with what type of character he wants to play in the stage or on the movies. He's a bad person.
I suppose.
He is. If you throw a knife at your wife and like ignore your daughter, you're not there. He wasn't there for the birth of his own daughter? Like, yeah. These are all things that they say in the movie, but like nobody's like, I mean, except for the ex-wife. It's all like, what, you're afraid that you don't matter. And and like that would be a better line if it was delivered to somebody who I cared about. I care more about him. And even like, it's between him and then Edward Norton, right? Edward Norton's kind of a massive douchebag too. He comes in, he's throwing his weight around, he sleeps with everybody on God's green earth, all obsessed with truth. You're lying to people on stage. There is no truth. That's a whole different. That's a half-formed thought that I'm working on about like the need for real in movies and the truth in movies and how that misguides people and kind of leads to sort of this misunderstanding of the found footage genre and also some of the stuff in Birdman. But I don't have that fleshed out yet, so I can't really dig into it too far.
I'm once again reminded of something that Joseph Devon once said about the difference between you and Danny Brophy.
And what is that?
Danny Brophy writes love letters to the things to your childhood and all the things you love. Albert Berg tells you why everything you love is wrong.
That makes you sound like such a cynic. I don't want to be that guy.
Unless it has to do with B movies.
Hey, listen, you are allowed to like whatever you want to like. I'm just telling you why I don't like it.
I'm just I was making an observation.
Yeah, technically Joseph was making the observation, so
repeating an observation. Anyway, I think we're a little over on time this week, so I think we're going to wrap this one up. We'll have time to talk about Daredevil next week.
Yeah, we promised we would, didn't we, Tony? It's good. Yeah. I watched the first episode. Not as dark as... I mean, maybe it gets darker, but it's not as dark as everybody told me it was going to be in the first episode. That sidekick character is awesome. If they kill him off in episode 2, I am going to be upset. No spoilers or anything. Like, if you want to wait until episode 9... Sorry, go ahead.
The sidekick lawyer? Like the other lawyer?
Yeah!
Yeah, he's awesome.
That guy's the best. I didn't realize Daredevil had a sidekick because I've never, consumed any other Daredevil media. And, he comes in and they're like... since Daredevil's blind, he kind of describes what's happening for him in that moment where they're go into the witness and he's like, "Can we sit down?" And she shrugs and looks over at him and he's like, "She shrugged. I say we go for it." And they sit down. His attitude is so great because Daredevil's this kind of brooding, almost Edward Cullen type.
Yeah.
Not in a. Everybody's gonna be mad at me. I'm not
Sparkles.
People don't like Edward Cullen, but he's got that sort of just I've had a dark past. I've seen things. Or not seen things in his case. But
he saw his eyes melt away.
And it's just great to have that comic relief there of not like Jar Jar Binks or anything level, but just this guy has been with him for a long time. They're very comfortable together, but he's a very different type of person.
Yeah.
I love that in this series so much.
You've got a series, so you could actually do a long, long origin story. And they made it protracted, and I kind of like that this time.
But I assume
Like,
they're going to go back to, because like at the beginning of the first episode, he's just beating people up. And I'm like, why did he decide to beat people up? And it's not explained yet.
And like, I know I'm the only one on this show that cares about like choreography, but like they have really good fight scenes in this so far.
I care about. Listen, Tony, I just don't care about your dumb chokeholds. As
No,
far as a
what I'm saying-
chokehold in Daredevil, Tony, was it okay? The first episode, somebody choked somebody out. Did it work?
I don't think anyone actually choked anyone in this, but I was saying that the fighting is excellent. Like the choreography is clear. Like they don't do any shaky cam. They're actually showing you like how the fight is going down, and you can tell they put a lot of time into making it look really good for that.
Have you watched more than the first episode?
I have not. I just watched the first one last night and had to watch Big Ass Spider right after.
I am worried. We talked about we're going to wrap up, but I want to say this. Like, my vision of Daredevil is not like the Daredevil in the movie that they apparently put out. I didn't watch it, but I've been told that basically he can just see.
Yeah, like it's like a sonar type thing.
I want it to be like that he's just got super fast reflexes and he can hear people coming really well. I mean, I guess it's a superpower, and
Well, like in the movie, like basically, if someone was in the rain, he could like see exactly what they look like because of the raindrops bouncing off, and like he could, like it was just a sonar type thing. He pretty much could see. Like at one point, Colin Farrell starts ringing bells and stuff to make it so it's just too much.
right?
But it just didn't work. I don't even know why that movie didn't work. It just was bad.
I want him to be mostly blind in this, Tony. Like, I'm okay if, I understand he probably doesn't need the cane all the time or whatever, but like,
Yeah.
if he basically can just see, then what's the point? Maybe
Yeah.
I'm not a Daredevil aficionado. Maybe I'll be convinced later on if I see. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool.
I like that he can like do the whole like truth thing just by listening to heartbeat and everything, heart rate.
That was cool. See, that was like, if he can hear really well, and he hears her like her heart speeding up, and he's like, oh, okay, she's got some stuff that she's hiding, and plus he's probably really good at picking up on like intonation of voice and everything. That was
Yeah.
fine. I was absolutely fine with that. I'm willing to even like accept some things like the fact that he can jump around fighting, without knowing exactly where everything is. Although my vision of that is that he went to that place beforehand, Tony. In that one fight where he's like jumping all over on the containers, in my mind he scoped it out like ahead of time and knew where everything was, so he could do that
Like
jump.
around with his stick and tapping on things and figuring it out.
Yeah, that probably is not how they did it. All right, that probably is not what happened. But in my mind, like that would be cooler somehow to me if he actually had to set it up instead of just being like, I know, I'm awesome. Like I like planning better than superpowers.
Well, there are people that can use like echolocation a little bit. Like it's one of the things whenever you try to search for our podcast, it's the first thing that comes up is human echolocation. And there are people that can do that, just like click a little bit and they can kind of tell where a wall is as opposed to other things. It's not like hyper defined and everything, but it can help. So I can see him having maybe a little bit more situational awareness just because of that.
And I know he's supposed to have really heightened senses and all that, even more than a regular blind person, but it just I want there to be some limitations.
There was a
Because that's
point that people were trying to make that I can't remember where I read it. I know it was on Reddit, but I think people were trying to say that the thing that gave him his powers was the same ooze that created the Ninja Turtles, and apparently that was like a movement in the 90s for a little bit.
Well, no. Okay, so the Ninja Turtles were originally a spoof of Daredevil.
Oh, were they?
Yeah, so like Daredevil was like this really dark and gritty, and they're like, we'll make something dark and gritty too. Look, they're turtles, all right? Like it was a satire of Daredevil, and they even fought some of the Daredevil's same nemesis, I think. Or no. Okay, so I think Daredevil originally had to fight against somebody called the Hand.
Yeah.
Which is why the Ninja Turtles fight against the Foot Clan.
Yeah, I remember the hand in the video games though they had too. Like there was a giant hand in one of the Ninja Turtles games.
I think that might have been like going back to spoofing the foot thing, but
Yeah.
Daredevil actually fought like a real supervillain or something, or possibly an organization called the Hand, and
Yeah.
it was a joke. Like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles started out, as you might expect, being a joke because they are called the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There is nothing about that you can take seriously. They were making fun of Daredevil. That was the whole start. Anyway,
Is there I'm trying to think. Isn't there a gay mafia called the Mauve Hand? Like a real thing?
I don't know. How would I know that?
I don't know. You know a lot of things.
That is true, Tony. I know a lot of things. Especially about gay stuff.
Yeah.
Super knowledgeable about the gay mafia.
All stuff.
I'm just deflecting. We should wrap up, Tony. We said we were going to.
All right. Well, we've got a lot of cool stuff coming up. I'm trying to get something together that's going to be for all of you with the upcoming battle between Danny Brophy and Tom Mays. We're going to try to have a little bit of a WWE style press conference coming up. We'd like get them on the stage, because if you guys aren't paying attention to their Twitter fight that's going back and forth, it's some of the funniest stuff that's ever happened for the Writers Arena. It's one of the most anticipated story battles that we're ever going to have, or not ever going to have, but that we've had so far. So check out Danny Brophy and Thomas Mays, who is at Improbable Author on Twitter, at Danny Brophy on Twitter, and watch the battle that they have going on. It's been hilarious. It's been awesome. And I think you guys are really going to like the stories that they end up coming up with.
No offense to either one of these guys, but I fully expect to be more entertained by the Twitter fight than by the actual stories.
I'm kind of feeling the same thing. I think they're going to be good stories, but like the back and forth has been incredible so far. So that's just a little side thing going on. If you guys want to support us, go to humanechoes.com. We put up a lot of cool posts. Like we've got David Webb, who is at Doc Occupant, writing these beer and a brew posts that I really like. He reviews
book
a book.
And a brew, Tony.
Beer. Yeah, book and a brew. Excuse me.
The beer is the brew. You don't want both. It's like a beer in both hands. One of them will be reading at some point.
Double fisted
awesome.
To an audiobook. Like so far, I've actually got a couple of the books that he suggested. I've read The Martian, and that book is awesome.
The latest one he did though was on 100 Years of Solitude. I think it was. Is that what it's called? Or 100 Days of Solitude?
Garcia Gomez.
Yeah,
I think it's the last name. But yeah, like he did an awesome review of that.
That was my favorite one he's ever done, Tony. I've tweeted him about it. But like that was like he really. I don't know. It's just beautiful. He just the way he talked about it, I was just like, I want to read this book now. I've really been sucked into your experience.
And so we're doing that like every other week. We've got a bunch of other posts that go up. Our discussion posts are a lot of fun. Like we had a good time with our Sea Creatures one this past week. There's just so much going on at that site. And on the right-hand side, there is a PayPal link. If all the stuff that we put out, including the Writers Arena, including our posts, including the podcast, feels like it's worth $1, $5, $10, a one-time donation or a subscription, you can do it all there. It's on the right-hand side. And we really appreciate the donations and the support.
Yeah, we are definitely a small time operation. So anything that you guys can do to help and you're able to do to help is greatly appreciated. You help keep the doors open and the wheels moving, and we love you.
Aston. So, anyway, thank you guys very much for that. We're going to be back with Sharknado next week.
Yes, the grandpappy of all the modern B movies.
Yep. I have not seen it yet, so this will be an experience for me. I'll try to live tweet this one or something.
Yeah, this might be the worst one of the month, Tony. I'm not going to lie.
Well, at least, I don't know, I was going to say at least I get to look at Tara Reid, but she's not like what she used to be. Anyway, we will do that next week. We will see you guys there. Have an awesome one.
Bye, guys.